Welcome back to the PFF NFL show. Trevor Sikkema, Dalton Wasserman here with you guys. Preview week 3 in the NFL. It is already that time of the week. Hopefully you guys were rocking with us on the Monday show where we did the grade release and we talked about what happened on Sunday and Thursday. But now we get to preview and take that into the next week. What we think is repeatable. What's stable between these teams going from week 1 and week 2 to week 3. We kind of get to figure out, all right, what's the real identity of some of these teams? So we're going to break down both sides of the ball for every single matchup that we have this week. Dalton, how you doing, my friend?
Good. Busy week for sure. We had 10 games to preview on the college football show yesterday, obviously 16 today, and a bunch of backup quarterbacks playing this week, which should make it a little weird. Also, moving apartments this week in the middle of football season because I'm just an idiot like that, and I have a flight to Dallas right after this show. So we are absolutely loaded, and I have no idea how I even got any sleep last night.
You're on one this week, brother. I mean, I feel like doing the college preview and the NFL preview, and honestly the review shows too, every single week is enough. Then you decided to move apartments, which always sucks, and you are also traveling to Dallas, like you mentioned. So, hey, if you survive this week, if I even see you on Sunday to watch these games, it will be a job well done for you if you're not sleeping the entire day away on Sunday when this week ends. We got a lot of games to get to. You're not dead yet. You're full of energy. You are awake at this point in time as we are doing the preview show here. So we're going to get into it. All 16 games that we're going to preview. You mentioned there's quarterback injuries. There's backup quarterbacks that are in for this week, but there's also just a lot of injuries, I feel like, throughout the league. Of course, it's the worst part of this game, but it's something that we've got to talk about, and it throws a little bit of a wrench into what we've already seen. But to me, it makes sort of our data and our analysis with what these teams are outside of those injuries even more important. If you guys want to see that data for yourself, PFF NFL Show 25, no spaces. That is the promo code for you guys to get 25% off a PFF Plus subscription. That's the best way to do it. Go to subscribe.pff.com. You can also get the fully unlocked app as well, the PFF app, which has the betting tools, the player prop tools, the grades, all that great stuff. If you're a fantasy football player, again, if you're into betting, if you're into the draft, whatever it is, getting 25% off a PFF annual PFF sub, because it's not just during the season, it's the entire year. That's the way to go. So again, PFF NFL Show 25. That's how you get 25% off. You get 3 free months of the year with 25% off. So check that out. And if you don't have a subscription, now is a great time to get one by doing that. Let's get to Thursday Night Football. Actually, you know what? I'm going to give you your props first. You went 15-1 last week.
15-1. You went 13-3 as well, Trevor. So
I went 13. Which game did you miss? Because I picked the Bears. I picked the Texans to beat the Bucks, which happy to be wrong about that one. And then I picked the Broncos to beat the Colts, which I have to say, we should be tied. It should have been 14-2, 14-2, because the Broncos should have won that football game. But what was the game that you missed last week?
The only one was I took Pittsburgh over Seattle. And I thought they were going to go in their home stadium and play better defense than they did last week, and it would be a low-scoring win. The usual Pittsburgh Steelers kind of win in Pittsburgh. That was the only one. The other 15 felt good. And you mentioned that Houston one too. I mean, it came down to the wire also, right? They scored the winning touchdown inside the last 10 seconds. I mean, just an incredible game, obviously, and then obviously the way the Broncos-Colts game ended. That's tough for you, but that's the two that made the difference right there, so we'll live with it.
I haven't seen anything definitive about this, but I'm not convinced, I think I said that correctly, that the Bucs didn't let Nick Chubb score that touchdown so that they could get the ball back to potentially win the game.
It
would have been very big brain for Todd Bowles to do.
Or were they just trying to get you your parlay, Trev?
Yeah, they were trying to help me out to get me my parlay. We're not going to bring up the fact that I was one Will Anderson sack away from turning $50 into $12,000. We're not going to bring that up here on the show because I'm going to start to get emotional about it. Let's just move on to Thursday Night Football before I get too into this. The Bills and the Dolphins. This one's in Buffalo, divisional opponent, obviously. Short week for both of these teams. We already have Ed Oliver and Matt Milano ruled out for this game. Josh Allen's going to play, but it's reported that he might be wearing a visor for the first time, given the fact that he took a little sucker punch from Michael Clemens to the nose and busted his nose last week. He obviously was able to finish the game, and the Bills were able to beat the Jets pretty handily. The Dolphins are 0-2. They looked a lot more competitive last week against the Patriots than they did against the Indianapolis Colts to start the season. Dalton, where do you want to start this conversation here, previewing these two divisional opponents?
Yeah, I've mentioned before in the review show that the Dolphins' offensive line, to me, especially you talk about injuries, we're starting right out with it here. The injuries to the right side of their offensive line to Austin Jackson and James Daniels, they're both going to be out for a while. It's a struggle for them to do much of anything when it comes to the run game or Tua having to hold the ball beyond that 2.5-second mark. And right now, what it's coming down to is the Dolphins' offense, they need Tua to be perfect and make perfect throws to Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, working the screen game with Devon Achane too, but so often against the Buffalo Bills in his career, he has been far from perfect. In fact, he only has 2 games in his career with at least a 70 passing grade against the Bills. Buffalo is really kind of the house of horrors for this Miami team. Only a 59.9 passing grade there for Tua in his career against Buffalo. 10 big-time throws, 13 turnover-worthy plays. So, look, I think right now for this for this Dolphins offense to function, he has to be darn near perfect. The ball has to come out on time. It has to be perfectly accurate. And we've seen through the first 2 weeks there has been some poor decision-making. When he gets late in the play, there's not much ability to improvise. He has to be absolutely spot on in this game, especially with Oliver out. That's an opportunity, although the Bills D-line played really well last week against a better Jets offensive line. Matt Milano being out and Joe Andreessen being in his stead is going to be a big factor. They should want to attack the middle of the field, but even with the Bills hurt, these too high safety looks that they're always giving the Dolphins to look at, they're preventing those deep shots. So Tua's really going to have to be perfect, I think, especially over the middle of the field for the Dolphins to win this game.
Yeah, you talk about a couple of the guys that are out there. The Dolphins, for as much as a lot of people focus on the passing game with Mike McDaniel, like when they're at their best, obviously they're running the football, which is what we're going to talk about with a couple of teams here, and they just really haven't been able to do it. Yeah, Devon Achane played well last week against the Patriots, and he was a major factor, but it was more in the receiving game. He had 10 targets, 8 receptions, 92 yards, and that touchdown in the receiving game, and in the rushing game, 11 attempts, 30 rushing yards for just a 2.7 yards per carry average. So this Dolphins team is just not able to figure it out on the ground, and with Milano out and with Ed Oliver out, maybe it's an opportunity for them to get it going on the ground. And really, I'm going to flip sides, and I'm going to say that it's really just got to get going in general. Dalton, the whole point of having an offense that you call a Ferrari, right, with all of this speed is, one of the benefits of having a fast car like that is the acceleration, right? It's a 0 to 60. It's able to hit the ground running, and immediately you're full speed and you're putting it on these teams. Well, the Dolphins aren't that. They're not a Ferrari. They're a Fred Flintstone vehicle where they're like foot powered over here. Because when you look at the Dolphins in the first quarter starting these games, they're one of the worst teams in the NFL. They've got a negative 0.393 EPA per play, which is 30th in the NFL in the first quarter, and also just a 42.8 offensive grade. That's dead last. They have the worst offensive grade in the first quarter of any team in the NFL through 2 weeks. And it's a major reason why it's totally throwing off everything they do, because then they're just in recovery mode through the rest of the game. Now, to go to the Bills side of this, they have the 6th highest EPA per play in the first quarter right out of the gate. This is a team that often imposes their will on exactly what they want to do in the game. And obviously they had a big one to start the season against the Ravens. It was a little bit easier against the New York Jets, but still being able to come out and execute that first scripted drive is very important. But then even after that, do you get an extra drive in the first quarter? And it just has not gone well for the Miami Dolphins, and it's gone very well for the Buffalo Bills. So I am afraid for the Dolphins that if they once again get behind on the scoreboard early, if they have another slow start, well, that just plays into exactly what the Bills want to do as a team that ran the ball really well last week. And it will force Miami to probably abandon the run game sooner than they want to. They're not able to stay balanced. And then, like you said, it's a lot more onto his shoulders and how he is going to attack this Buffalo Bills secondary. So to me, if the Bills get up 7-10 nothing at the end of the first quarter, it's just going to be such a mountain for the Dolphins to be able to come back and beat them in this game. They have to start faster than they have this season.
Yeah, and their defensive line, I think, is in the spotlight this week, too, because, one, if you don't stop the run, we saw it last week with the Jets-Bills game. If you give this Bills team a two-way go and they can run the football with James Cook and Ray Davis and even Josh Allen, too, then you have a serious problem with them being two-dimensional. And, look, both quarterbacks the Dolphins have played, Daniel Jones and Drake May, they've both looked extremely comfortable in the pocket, and they've made every throw that they've needed to. This is a much more talented Dolphins defensive line than they've shown the first 2 weeks. They have to play better in this game against a very solid Bills O-line to have a chance to win it.
We have a very fun matchup here in the Rams and the Eagles facing off once again. These were playoff foes not many moons ago, and for it, we've got to get our guy Terron Armstead involved. He has been somebody who's been able to help us highlight the trenches every single week here on this show, and he's got a good one here to preview between the Rams and the Eagles. Let's check out what he had to say. All right, back with our guy, Terron Armstead, here for another trench breakdown of the week. Today, we're talking about one of his favorites. And when I say one of his favorites, I mean he mentioned that he was one of the reasons why he's glad that he's retired and he never has to face this guy again. We're talking about Jared Verse of the Los Angeles Rams going up against Jordan Mailata of the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, Terron, I'm referencing a clip from a podcast that you were on not too long ago where you specifically mentioned Jared Verse and the power that he has in his pass rush as one of the couple of reasons why you're happy that you don't have to put on the helmet again. A lot of people talk about pass rush moves. They talk about the finesse, right? The ghost move, the club rip, the spin move, the cross chop. Like everybody loves the sexy pass rush moves. But you were talking about that speed to power conversion that Jared Verse has. And you mentioned it last week with Myles Garrett as well. So in a world where we love the flashy when it comes to pass rushing, why is handling someone's power as a pass rusher something that you have to focus on first and foremost, and why it's so devastating?
Yeah, Trevor, I would say, not just I would say, it's proven. That's the move you're going to see most. Majority of the game, majority of every game, you're going to see power. So like if you were to chart rushes on a down and down basis, bull rush would be the most charted. Mm-hmm. Of course, you never know if it's quick game. You don't have time all the time to get into all those different rushes. So bull rush is going to be what you see more than anything else. Spin move maybe 10%, cross chop maybe 12%, things like that. But the bull rush you're going to see from across the league the most. So my thought always was I have to stop power first. Stop the majority, stop the majority, stop the majority. So that's like the biggest thing when I'm evaluating offensive linemen, or I'm training offensive linemen and working with them. Let me see you stop power. Can you anchor? If you can do that, if you can stop power in the league, you got a shot. If you cannot stop somebody from bull rushing you, it's going to be a very, very long, very, very tough, challenging road to be an NFL player, be an NFL offensive lineman. So it's the most common. It's from a down and down baseman, you will see bull rushes across the board.
And when we talk about this specific matchup, it's interesting because you got Verse, who's a great speed to power conversion type of a player. It feels like he gets off the ball and that first step, I mean, there's just so much power that comes in that first step, explosiveness, that he doesn't need a big runway to be able to bull rush you and knock you back a little bit. Right. But against Jordan Mailata is 365 pounds. And so what I wanted to ask you is, as you teach guys or throughout your career, obviously facing power and how to do that a little bit better, what's the formula of like, hey, you know what? Sometimes you just got to be bigger. Like you just got to have more weight on you. You got to be able to anchor versus the things that you could, technique wise to be able to mitigate that power. And then specifically how this matchup with Mailata, given how big he is, helps him against a guy like Jared Verse.
Yeah, no, for sure. You gotta have some weight, you gotta have some luggage in the trunk for sure to be able to take the brunt of that power. It's things you can do throughout the off season to improve. So you get stronger in the weight room, you get on that Pilates reformer, you get your core strong, you get your legs stronger in the off season. Those things that you can do in the off season to improve your overall play strength. Technique-wise, strike timing, hitting people with full extension, having a great base, knowing exactly where your feet are. Lane Johnson and Jordan Mailata, they may be the best in the league at that. Like, they know exactly where they are in space. You never see those guys heels together, feet crossed over. They know exactly where they are in space, great base, so they're able to anchor really, really well. So it goes to your base, having your feet in the ground, and then strike timing. If you're catching Jared Verse, if you're letting him hit you in the face mask, run through your chest, and you feel like you'll be able to stop power after that, you have a very dirty, back in your jersey. It's going to be a long day. Your quarterback going to be pushing you in the back all day.
So this matchup specifically, how do you feel like it's going to play out, right? Talk to me about both of these guys. The things we've talked a little bit about, okay, the archetype of what they want to do, but these guys specifically, versus Mailata. Mailata was our highest graded offensive lineman that we had last year. He's off to a good start this year.
Yep.
Verse, same thing. He had one of the most total pressures recorded in the NFL last season. The sack total wasn't there, but the win percentage was, and just how much he was generating pressure on the pocket was. So this is absolutely two of the best right now in the NFL. How do you see this one playing out, and what's the chess match between these two guys?
I'm excited to see this one, Trevor. I'm excited to see that we saw it in the playoffs last year when the Eagles defeated the Rams and went ahead to win a Super Bowl. For Jordan Mailata, he's off to a great start. He was, I believe, the highest graded tackle in week one for sure. And it's like the perfect matchup for him because he is such a big body. He is a very strong man, big base, anchor. So Jared Verse will have to find more ways to win. Like other guys, other tackles, he can really just go speed to power, and this guy's going to have to struggle to stop him or slow him down. But for Jordan, this is really into his wheelhouse. So if I had to pick a side, I would favor Jordan Mailata in this game. I think it plays perfectly into his strengths. I would like to see Verse add an inside counter at some point. I think that'll be the only way he'll be able to challenge Jordan Mailata on a consistent basis. He had a snap last year where he was able to run Jordan Mailata over. He jumped the snap perfectly. Mailata's feet wasn't in the ground. I don't see that happening. He's going to be flying off the ball. He'll be ready. His feet will be ready. He'll be ready to anchor. So Jared Verse will have to find another way to win.
I'm excited to see it too, because Verse, as a competitive guy, he's had this game circled,
Sure.
right? When the schedule came out, he had this circled. Okay, yeah, it's Houston and Tennessee to kind of start the season, but this is the test. And so maybe he's got a little bit of something in the back pocket that he's been in the lab with this offseason to give him a little bit more of a finesse game. So I'm very interested to see if he is able to show a little bit more finesse in his game against a guy who can neutralize his power a little bit more. Terron, as always, man, it's fantastic insight. Appreciate you, my friend.
Appreciate you, bro.
Love getting to talk to Terron Armstead every single week to preview those trench matchups. That is going to be a fun one. I really am looking forward to seeing if Jared Verse has a couple of extra finesse moves, some inside moves to try to counter. If Jordan Mailata can really handle his power, which he's been able to do as one of the highest graded tackles that we have had in the NFL. What do you think about this game, Dalton? Which side of the ball do you want to talk about to preview this one?
Yeah, I'm going to stay on that Eagles offensive side. And yes, those one-on-one pass rush matchups are going to be so much fun to watch, right? Jared Verse on one side against Mailata. You've got Byron Young, who's playing really well right now, the inside with guys like Kobe Turner and Braden Fisk. But the difference between these two teams last year was the Eagles' ability to run the ball in both of those games. And Saquon Barkley just absolutely teed off on the Rams. 8.8 yards per carry, 2.6 yards before contact per carry, which is ridiculous when you consider getting near that 2-yard mark on that is an elite range. And here at 2.5, over 2.5, that's fantastic stuff. And Saquon, 4 touchdowns, all 4 of them at least 62 yards long. So I think when you look at the Rams, this is why they signed Poona Ford. This is why they signed Nate Landman at linebacker, to get reinforcements in run defense alongside that defensive line that's so talented. But in this matchup last year, twice, it was Saquon Barkley who made the difference. If they can stop the run and make Jalen Hurts beat them, then I think the Rams feel really good about their defensive side of the ball. If not, and Barkley takes the game over like he did the last 2 matchups last year, then they're going to have a serious problem.
Yeah, I just don't feel like the Rams were built for that snow game in the playoffs. I think that went into that matchup a ton. I really do. And so I think it's going to be a lot more even this time around, even with it being in Philadelphia. Now, the Rams defensive line has been playing really well. You mentioned a couple of those players there. 77.8 overall defensive grade for the Rams. That's third for defensive line grades in the NFL that we have in our system. 75.7 pass rush grade as a defensive line. That is 6th. Now, they have so far played the Houston Texans and the Tennessee Titans, which are ranked 20th and 24th overall in offensive line gradings in the NFL per PFF. The Eagles are first. They have the number 1 offensive line grade in the NFL, playing the Cowboys in week 1 and then the Kansas City Chiefs in week 2. So it's going to look a little bit different. But honestly, I think a lot of the talk is going to be about the trench matchups between these two teams. But very quietly, Dalton, The Rams are just cooking in the passing game. I think that Stafford played really, really well last year, and I felt like towards the end of the season, he started to get that recognition and that notice. But man, he has hit the ground running this year, and there was all the talk this offseason about he's got the back injury. Is he even going to play? I was worried about it. I said the Los Angeles Rams were going to miss the playoffs this year simply because I didn't know what Matthew Stafford's health was going to be like. But when he is out there, man, I mean, look at this. They are first in the NFL in team passing graded at 91.8. They are 10th in EPA per pass. They are 5th in positive EPA per pass percentage that they have as a team. So they've just been phenomenal when it comes to knowing where the ball is going. And with a player who is as talented and who is as seasoned, as wise at the quarterback position as Matthew Stafford is, it's hard to bet against this guy. So I'm picking the Rams in this one. I know you're picking the Rams too. I saw that you got your score prediction in before I did, and I thought you were going to take the Eagles, and I thought I was going to get a different one for you here. But I'm going to take the Rams 24-21.
Yeah, I really like what the Rams have going on. Stafford's on fire right now, and I think it's great that they have an answer for zone coverage in Puka Nacua and a really good answer now against man coverage with Devontae Adams. I think those two guys could have a really big day against an Eagles secondary that has not looked quite as sharp as it did last year. I just think the Rams, this is the hump they have to get over, and they have to stop the run in this game. But the Eagles also, their offense in general just has not looked great through 2 games. It's been a struggle. It's been a struggle more so than last year for Saquon Barkley, and Jalen Hurts has hardly had to throw the football at all. The Eagles have been winning close, grinding games. I think the Rams go out on the road and pull one out here.
By the way, I forgot to mention the scores for the Dolphins and the Bills game before we moved on from that one. I've got the Bills 34-20 beating the Dolphins. You have the Bills beating the Dolphins 28-17. So we're both taking the Bills there. We were both also taking the Rams on the road against the Eagles. Bengals and Vikings. This is a matchup of 2 backup quarterbacks. Jake Browning starting for the Cincinnati Bengals. Carson Wentz now starting for the Minnesota Vikings. Where do you want to start with this one, Dalton?
So I think the attention, obviously, and rightfully, is going to be on the 2 quarterbacks. And on the Vikings side, it's going to be Carson Wentz, right, with J.J. McCarthy out with the high ankle sprain. And the one thing I'm looking at, you always talk about with any quarterback that goes into these Kevin O'Connell systems, look, they've got a support system. You've got Justin Jefferson. You've got T.J. Hawkinson. You've got a good set of weapons. Aaron Jones is obviously out, but Jordan Mason has looked pretty good in his stead. But the offensive line is the thing I'm going to worry about here. Ryan Kelly, not sure if he's going to play at center. And then this Viking team really needs Christian Darrisaw back, because it's either going to be Justin Skule or Walter Rouse at left tackle, who's only played a handful of snaps in his career. And when you're going against a blindside monster like Trey Hendrickson, you need to be at full strength. I think, honestly, we could see if the Bengals win this game, and I know I talk about him a lot, FAU legend Trey Hendrickson, but you could see him being the difference in this game. He's leading the league in pressures right now. He's dominated their first 2 opponents in Cleveland and Jacksonville. And if Christian Darrisaw is not out there, and even if he is, it's going to be his first game back off a major knee injury. What is that going to look like? So I think Kevin O'Connell, he's going to want to move the pocket for Carson Wentz. He's going to want to get the run game and the bootleg game going that's so classic in his offense. I think Wentz is going to be on the move a little bit, because if they drop back to pass too much, or if they fall behind early in this game, you don't want to mess around with Trey Hendrickson on that left side of the offensive line with whatever their left tackle situation is going to be this week. We may not know that until game time, but Trey Hendrickson's been dominant so far. He's earned every dollar he's getting paid, and he's certainly going to get paid after this season if he keeps playing like this. He could be a difference maker in this game again.
Yeah, look, the Vikings' offensive line hasn't been fantastic. I'll certainly say that, but it also, we talked about this in the grades release show. It hasn't been catastrophic for them. Really, it's just that J.J. McCarthy isn't really processing things at the speed that you need him to. Now, why would you expect him to do that, right? I mean, he's coming from playing behind Michigan's offensive line. He missed all of last year. So this is his first true test in the NFL as a starter these first couple of weeks. And so it was always going to be a work in progress for him to get that processing speed up. And for Carson Wentz, for as much as he's had inconsistencies, some accuracy issues, some decision-making issues, certainly, like, he has played in the NFL before, and he has a lot of starts under his belt. And so he sort of understands the speed in which you need to play the game. And I actually think that he can play well with Kevin O'Connell in that offense, especially if he's able to operate it a little bit quicker than we saw J.J. McCarthy do so over the last couple of weeks. For the Cincinnati Bengals, I'm going to be honest with you, man. I'm not really that worried about Jake Browning. I mean, Browning, whether it was last year, this year, whatever it's been, he has been a gunslinger. He has been somebody who's not really afraid to come in and just hit the ground running with a ton of confidence. Now, does it always work out? No. I mean, the turnover-worthy play and big-time throw percentage is pretty much even, and I think he has more turnover-worthy plays than he does big-time throws in his career. But at the same time, like, he'll give you a chance to win. He'll attempt the throws that you need to attempt in order to win in this league, and he's got two great receivers to be able to throw the ball to. The part that I'm worried about this Bengals team, of course, the pass blocking, everybody's talked about that with, they can't pass protect. That's why Joe Burrow's hurt, all that kinds of stuff. And of course, there is some truth to that. Dalton, I'm worried about it from the run game perspective. When you look at the Bengals offensive line, they are 30th in run blocking grade at a 45.3. They have a 75% defeated run blocking percentage, which basically means, does any of your offensive linemen earn a negative grade on a play? 75% of the time, someone on the offensive line is earning not just a 0, not just a, okay, you weren't an ass kicker, you didn't go above and beyond, you didn't make an impact block, you did your job fine. Not just that, not just a 0, negative plays where they're a reason why a run play maybe didn't work or got tackled at the line of scrimmage or in the backfield. 75% is a huge number for them. They're 29th in the NFL in rushing grade overall when you bring into account like Chase Brown and how he has done, which, by the way, only Cincinnati Bengals running back to have gotten a carry through 2 weeks is Chase Brown. They clearly do not trust their depth at all. 61.8 is the rush grade there, and then they're just 29th in the NFL so far through 2 weeks in EPA per rush. This team can't run the ball. I'm not really that worried about Jake Browning. Can he throw up a stinker? Yeah, he can, but he has also shown that there are a couple of times, especially when his back is against the wall, where he can actually deliver for you. But if you have zero balance as an offense, now I get worried. Now you're putting the ball in his hands way too much to go and win this game, especially on the road in Minnesota. So I'm going to take the Vikings in this one. I'm going to take them 24-13. Honestly, just because I trust the balance of that team a little bit better. Again, this is me sort of leaning into Kevin O'Connell and Brian Flores and how much I like those guys as coaches. But I'll take the Vikings here. If the Bengals can't get it going in the run game, I just think they're going to become way too one-dimensional.
There's a name you mentioned there that I think is a difference in this game, and I think this is going to be an ugly, really defensive game. I think both quarterbacks are going to be looking in their first start of the season to really get comfortable, and they're going to have to find the rhythm early. But I think Brian Flores is the difference in this game. I've got the Vikings winning a very close defensive game, 17-16.
Okay. All right. Next game we're previewing is the Raiders and the Commanders. I know Walt's in the chat, so we get to talk about his Raiders here. This one's in Washington. Jaden Daniels, as far as I have seen, still completely day to day. That is what Dan Quinn said. He is quite literally day to day. They have Marcus Mariota, who has come in relief for Jaden Daniels before, and so he is a backup quarterback that they're obviously confident in. But what do you think about this matchup here, Dalton? What do you want to talk about? Which side of the ball you starting with?
So I think, Jaden Daniels with the sprained knee, even if he does play, I think we'll probably expect him to run a little bit less, and that's okay because I think with this Raiders defense, it's a Pete Carroll defense. You know exactly what you're getting. Cover 3, 51% of the time, leading the league by a pretty good margin for the Raiders there. So I think when you look at Jaden Daniels, I go, okay, let's see the matchup versus cover 3 in his career, and he has just been outstanding. 85.4 passing grade, completing 73% of his passes, 9.3 yards per attempt, 7 big-time throws, only 1 turnover-worthy play. This is just the matchup that you're going to get. The Raiders, they don't have even the players right now to disguise and mess around with all the looks. You know what you're getting out of them. They're relying on their guys to play fundamentally sound football, and honestly, they haven't really been playing too well in the secondary. Guys like Eric Stokes and Darnay Holmes. Caillou Blue-Kelly's been okay, but we know they lack talent in the secondary. I think this is a big opportunity for this Washington passing game to get back on track. Even if Daniels has to win from the pocket with the compromised knee, I think even at 80-90%, he can get the ball to Deebo Samuel, to Terry McLaurin, to Zach Ertz. Even Jalen Lane's going to play more this week. I believe Noah Brown is out. So I think Daniels has a real opportunity to get back on track after a tough game against Green Bay, and we'll see obviously how he's recovering from this knee injury. And even if it's Marcus Mariota, we saw when he had to play last year, he played well. I think the Commanders can get back on track here on offense at home.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure what to think of the Raiders at this point right now, because week 1, Geno comes out, he's on fire, right? Throws for over 300 yards. I think he almost threw for 400 yards. I think it was like 360 something. And they end up winning that game against New England Patriots. And it looked great on that side of things. Last week against the Chargers on Monday Night Football, They struggled just because it was, the early turnovers, not great, but I think they just struggled to attack down the field. Anyways, they don't really have a run game, which is weird to say with Ashton Genty, and especially because I felt like this offensive line was pretty good last year. So far, through 2 games, Ashton Genty's got 30 attempts, 81 rushing yards, -3 yards before contact so far this season. When you look at the Raiders' offensive line, there's only 2 players on their offensive line with an impact run blocking percentage above 10%. When you're an offensive line, like you want it, so impact run blocking percentage, I should explain that. It's just like I said with defeated, it's the opposite. It's how often you are gaining a positive, an impact play. So again, offensive line play, the way that we grade that is, hey, if you block your guy correctly and the rest of the offensive line, blocks their guys correctly, if you individually block your guy correctly, okay, you did your job. That is a 0. If you went above and beyond, like if you locked some guy up and you drove him all the way to the sideline and you created a huge hole for the running back, then obviously you're getting a positive grade there. So for the Raiders, they have 2 players on their team so far this year that have that impact run blocking percentage above 10%, which is what you want. You'd love for something to be, around 12 to 18%. I think it would be great. Some of the best are in the 20%, but 12 to 18%, that's good. That's fine. That's what you want. Last year, they had 4 players on their offensive line averaging double digits, so above 10% in an impact run blocking percentage. So the impact run blocking from the offensive line isn't there. They're not creating the holes that they need to for Ashton Genty, and the offense just isn't balanced right now. What we saw week 1 and week 2 were the 2 sides of the coin. Okay, if Geno Smith is on fire passing the football, guess what? There's a good chance they're going to win the football game. They're going to score enough points. That's what happened against the Patriots. Against the Chargers, Geno didn't have a great day. Bunch of turnover early. Certainly, it was not great in the passing game. They have no run game to lean on to sort of balance it out when the passing game might not be great. Now, the kicker here is Washington's 3rd in the NFL so far through 2 weeks. Of course, it's a small sample size, but they're 3rd in the NFL in overall run defense grade as a team. They're also 32nd in the NFL in coverage grade from their secondary players, so corners and safeties. So you would think that the script is going to be closer to that of which the Raiders played the Patriots than the one that we saw them play against the Chargers. And if that's the case, I think this game's going to be pretty close, even with the numbers that you mentioned and how good Jaden Daniels has been against cover 3, which we know the Raiders are going to want to run. I think this is a true coin flip. I went back and forth. Ultimately, I gave the Commanders the win in this one. I've got them winning 21-17 simply because it is at home for them. If this was in Las Vegas, I think I might have had it flip. This is a coin flip game to me because of all of those reasons that I mentioned there. Who do you have winning this one?
I've got the Commanders also a little bit higher scoring, 27-21. I think you mentioned it with the Commanders' struggles in their secondary. Geno's going to attack them downfield. He didn't get to attack the Chargers downfield effectively at all because their secondary is so good. Both offenses here have an opportunity to go off. I just think Daniels and the way that he's so safe with the football and the ability of those weapons, I think especially with Deebo Samuel working after the catch, that could be a big factor in this game. I think the Commanders do win a high-scoring game.
Jets, Buccaneers. Jets going on the road for the first time this season to Tampa. Tampa hosting a game for the first time this season. So this is their home opener. Tampa is 2-0. The Jets are 0-2. And Justin Fields will not play in this game. It was announced just before we went live on this show that Tyrod Taylor will be starting for the New York Jets. How does that change things? Does it change things at all? What are you talking about? What's the game script here, Dalton?
I'll start actually on the Bucs offensive side, and you go, okay, now with Tyrod Taylor and what you have now is a situation with the Bucs where you probably felt like you had to win this game anyway, but you really have to win this game with Tyrod Taylor starting and the Jets struggling as bad on offense as they did last week. So I think when you look at the Bucs offense, you talk about this offensive tackle situation. It's been a theme that Baker Mayfield's had to work through, bad pass protection. Graham Barton playing left tackle, usually their center, 36.4 pass blocking grade. Charlie Heck, he had to fill in at right tackle the other day. Now Luke Gedeke is going to be out for a few weeks, 29.4 pass blocking grade so far. I look at this game, obviously if the Jets are going to win, they're going to win a very low-scoring game. if there are two guys that I think have something of an advantage here for the Jets, and I think it's similar to the way it was against the Pittsburgh Steelers a couple weeks ago, it's their defensive ends, Will McDonald and Jermaine Johnson. I think both have played well so far. Will McDonald with a 73 pass rush grade, Jermaine Johnson with a 69.9. He looks good coming off the Achilles so far. If there's anything that gives the Jets any hope in this game, it's their pass rush with those two guys on the edge, and even Quinnen Williams, obviously, on the inside is still very good. So, it's going to have to be low scoring if the Jets want to stay in it. I think the way this changes things for Tyrod Taylor, and he's still a good athlete at his age, but he's not Justin Fields, it's going to look like a more traditional offense, right? Obviously, they're going to hand it off and want to run those zone run schemes with Breece Hall and Braylon Allen. There's not going to be as much read option. Taylor, maybe you hope that he can get rid of the football on time, but the Jets are also very short on receiving options beyond Garrett Wilson. Jets going to have to win a defensive game, and they're going to have to win the battle up front with their defensive line.
Yeah, I think an interesting part of this game is sort of the way that the Jets are set up on offense. You mentioned it there at the tail end of sort of what you were talking about, that the Jets don't really have anybody outside of Garrett Wilson. So Garrett Wilson's got 15 targets so far this season. The next highest target getter is Breece Hall with 4. I mean, it's just Garrett Wilson. It's quite literally just Garrett Wilson. Mason Taylor's got 3. Jeremy Ruckert has 3. And then when you finally get to the next wide receiver, it's Tyler Johnson with 3. It's Josh Reynolds with 3. And then it's Arian Smith with 2. So there's just not much of a passing offense outside of Garrett Wilson, which brings up an interesting matchup with the Buccaneers, who have faced 2 pretty good wide receiver ones over the last 2 weeks. They faced Drake London in week 1, and they faced Nico Collins in week 2. Looking at Drake London in week 1, he got 15 targets and 8 catches, but only 55 yards and no touchdowns. So they were able to handle, as a group, they were able to handle Drake London decently well. You fast forward to the next week, Nico Collins, 9 targets, 3 catches, 52 yards and a touchdown, but one of those was that very long play, that very long touchdown pass. You take that away, I mean, they shut down Nico Collins. Now, I know there's a lot of things that go into that, blocking, sort of what CJ Stroud is seeing, the play designs overall. But through 2 weeks, to have both of those guys, Drake London and Nico Collins, have less than 60 yards receiving, that shows me that the Buccaneers are doing a pretty good job of taking away whatever the top option is in the passing game, especially with that many targets for those players, and then not having a very high catch percentage on those targets with both of them. So if they're able to key in on Garrett Wilson, I don't know where they throw the football, because they certainly haven't thrown it to anybody other than Garrett Wilson so far this season. So that, I think, is something to look out for of how well the Bucs have played against wide receiver ones. And then on the flip side, Dalton, the Jets have Sauce Gardner, right? And Sauce is probably going to be matched up against Mike Evans for a good portion of this game. Mike Evans looks great. I know he hasn't had that crazy breakout game yet, but he looks fluid, he looks strong, he looks fast, explosive, he looks motivated, focused, all those kinds of things. Mike looks good to start this season, even though the numbers aren't as explosive as maybe they have been in years past. He looks good. You're going to get a lot of him versus Sauce Gardner in this game, which then leaves, okay, we talked about how the Bucs have covered wide receiver ones. How have the Jets covered wide receiver 2s? So mainly I'm looking at Brandon Stevens and Michael Carter. And with both of those guys, Stevens 56.1 coverage grade, Carter 53.5 coverage grade. I mean, like, these guys have not been good. They're going up against Emeka Egbuka, who's coming off back-to-back fantastic games as a rookie, with back-to-back games where he has scored a touchdown and been a pivotal part of Tampa winning this game. So that is really what I'm looking forward to seeing is, do the Bucs continue to clamp down on wide receiver ones in Garrett Wilson? Because if they do, I don't think the Jets have anything else that they can go to. And then how well do the Jets play against the Buccaneers wide receiver 2 in Emeka Egbuka? I think those are the matchups to watch for. Ultimately, I think the Bucs should win big. And another reason why I think the Bucs should win big is because you looked at their offensive tackles and you highlighted the issues that they have with Graham Barton at left tackle and then Charlie Heck over at right tackle. They sort of adjusted things, and Baker got the ball out of his hands extremely quickly during that game. They had the 5th highest, or the 5th lowest, I should say, time to throw last week, and you could tell that Josh Grisher, the offensive coordinator, was mitigating the offensive tackle issues with how quickly he was getting the ball out of Baker Mayfield's hands. They showed against a really good edge rush duo that plan worked against Houston because they were able to go in there and get the win. And certainly that last drive was able to do it. And it was great to see them be able to do that. Well, again, if you're a Houston Texans fan, it wasn't great to see that. But just from an overall offensive execution standpoint, and certainly from the Bucs standpoint, it was great to see them be able to mitigate those offensive line issues. But I just don't see the Jets being able to compete. I have the Bucs winning this game 30-13. I think this is going to be a blowout here.
I think they can compete for a bit on defense. You mentioned, again, the Jets do have star power. The D-line is good. The two linebackers are good. You do have Sauce Gardner. I think eventually they just can't score enough. I have it 21-13 Tampa Bay, and I think, again, Baker Mayfield, when push comes to shove, he's going to will his team to a win when it matters most. He's going to find a way on third down to pick it up, whether it's with his arm or with his legs. He makes so many big plays now running the ball as well. But, yeah, Tyrod Taylor and just the struggle of this Jets offense, it's going to be tough down there in Tampa. 21-13 Bucs.
The Steelers and the Patriots. This game's in Foxborough. Patriots hosting the Steelers in this one. Where we're starting here.
Look, I think we have to give credit. I know there's a lot of talk about Drake May and Ramondre Stevenson played well last week, and the offense looked. We got to give credit to this offensive line and the way that they're pass protecting. That's going to come up big in this game. The Patriots' first two opponents, the Raiders and the Dolphins, they have not rushed the passer well so far this season. We know the Steelers can still rush the passer. I believe they're third in pass rush grade right now, but you look at this New England pass blocking, 10th in the league in pass blocking grade, 10th in pressure percentage, 13th in the number of pressures under 2.5 seconds. Last year, they were in the bottom 3 in the NFL of all 3 of these categories. And you look at all of the new pieces on this offensive line. Will Campbell at left tackle. Jared Wilson at left guard had a tough first game, but bounced back in a really nice way last week. Garrett Bradbury's been surprisingly really good. Owenu's solid at right guard. Morgan Moses has been closer to average. He's got the big matchup with TJ Watt this week, but I think we have to credit this Patriots offensive line. They're still figuring things out in the run game, but in pass protection, this so far has been a substantial improvement. They're going to get tested this week against Watt, Highsmith, Herbig, Hayward, all the guys that the Steelers have up front. They can still rush the passer really well, even despite their struggles in run defense. If the Patriots get in third and long situations, this is the matchup to watch. Drake May looked super comfortable in the pocket last week. I thought he was fantastic with all the clean pockets he was getting. This New England offensive line to me is in the spotlight. These are the types of matchups where if you win them, you can kind of consider yourself leveled up here as an entire offense.
Yeah, they spent a lot of time and resources upgrading that offensive line, which was much needed, right? They were one of the worst, if not the worst, offensive line in the NFL in a lot of categories, specifically pass blocking. And so it's great to see, hey, with a little bit of extra time, with a little bit less pressure, Drake May is able to deliver in ways like we saw him do when he was at North Carolina. On the Steelers side of things, the offense, I would say that it kind of like is what it is. Like it's a lot of what we thought that it was going to be. Aaron Rodgers has had some nice throws deep down the field, but it's not plentiful. There's not a ton of them. It's going to be much more of a methodical offense there for them. On the defensive side of the football, though, I don't know, concerned. I guess concerned is a fair word about their run defense because it just has to be better from this team. 23rd in the NFL so far in run defense grade with a 59.0, and then they're 20th in EPA per rush allowed. And when I say 20th, I mean, like, that's obviously bad. You want to be, in this sense, the way that I'm talking about it, you want to be first, okay? You want to be able to have a negative EPA per rush allowed for these teams. And the Steelers are in the back half of the NFL at how easy it is for teams to be able to run the ball on them. And you wouldn't think that with a lot of the names that they have on their defensive line with TJ Watt and Cam Hayward and Keanu Benton and guys like that. But Benton, I think, has struggled in run defense. I highlighted last week how I felt like the Seahawks were just going straight at him, and he was yielding a lot of yards off the line of scrimmage, and that's something that's just got to get fixed. It's got to get fixed here. The Patriots, for as great as Drake May is, they are a team that's going to want to stay balanced, right? They have Ramondre Stevenson. They have Antonio Gibson. They have Travion Henderson, who I know lost a lot of snaps because of some bad pass blocking last week, but he's not going to be in the doghouse forever. He's going to get in the mix. They're going to want his explosiveness in there. And it's going to be up to the Steelers to really shore up that run defense because it feels like that's been a backbone of what makes this team great is how they can hold you to lower scores. They can get you in those one-score games, and then they feel good about having a quarterback who has sort of seen it all, has all the answers to the test to be able to do that. But you don't get to do that, in my opinion, unless you really stop the run. And I just think it'll be interesting to see how much the Patriots are able to take advantage of that, right? That offensive line that you mentioned there going up against that defensive line of the Steelers. And really, do the Steelers get closer to what their identity has been over the last couple of years? Or do they continue to struggle when it comes to run blocking and getting guys open? Ultimately, I do have faith in this Steelers team. I think it's going to be a better week for them. I have them winning here 23-20, going on the road and beating the New England Patriots.
Yeah, I think this might be the hardest game of the entire week to pick because I think both teams have played reasonably decent football at times, and then they've both also kind of shown their flaws. I think the Steelers' lack of explosiveness, they need to find a way to be more explosive, especially if Christian Gonzalez is still going to be out. New England, this is really a big prove-it week for their offensive line. If they can pass protect, I would like them to win this game. I don't have that proven in front of me yet. I'm also going to take the Steelers 20-17, but I could see this going either way. I think this might be the most coin flip game of the week.
All right, this PFF betting segment brought to you by our friends over at DraftKings. Taking a look at some of the lines that we've got over at DraftKings Sportsbook, which you could see over on their .com platform as well as in their app. Dalton, is there a certain line, a player prop, something that you like this week that you got your eye on?
Yeah, I think the player props, there's some that aren't up yet, but that go along with this. So I'm going to hold with the general theme. Let's talk about Bears and Cowboys. And I think you're getting over 50.5. And I know that's a relatively high number, but these are two of the four lowest graded defenses in football. We just watched the Bears give up 52 points. The Cowboys certainly have a lot of questions on their defense. And Dak Prescott has been red hot carrying them on the offensive side. They gave up 37 points last week to the Giants. I think you're getting a shootout in this Cowboys-Bears game. And one underrated part of this, so, a lot of the obvious matchup is, okay, Dallas, Prescott's hot, the Bears are last in coverage grade, but they also don't rush the passer very well. And for as much as Caleb Williams has been up and down so far, we actually have him with a top 10 PFF grade in a clean pocket. So if the Cowboys don't get to him when Caleb Williams has been struggling under pressure, and both of these quarterbacks are going to get clean pockets, I think they're going to tee off on each other. I think you got a high-scoring game coming in Chicago this week.
Yeah, obviously, the lines, the odds, we're doing the show on a Wednesday, so they're, of course, subject to change. I'd keep an eye on what the odds are for both Garrett Wilson and Emeka Egbuka, their receiving props, once they come out, for the reasons that I mentioned. The Bucs have been pretty good at taking away wide receiver ones, and so depending on what that line is for Garrett Wilson, that could be something that you might be interested in. And then Emeka Egbuka as well, how much the Jets have struggled covering those wide receiver twos and how good Egbuka has been over the last couple of weeks. Just something to keep an eye on. The NFL season obviously rolling strong here, and every touchdown can bring you closer to a payout with DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Every game's another chance to cash in. Don't just watch the action, you can win with it. DraftKings Sportsbook delivers the unmatched intensity of the NFL right to your fingertips. From the first touchdown score to anytime touchdown props, or the thrill of live in-game betting, every snap is loaded with opportunity. New customers, this one's for you. Okay, listen, bet just $5 and get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Plus, you can score over $200 off on NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Your season's heating up. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app. Use the promo code PFF. That's promo code PFF to get $200 in bonus bets instantly when you place your first $5 bet. Plus, over $200 off Sunday and NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. In partnership with DraftKings, the crown is yours. If you got a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or just text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problems with gambling. Call 877-8 Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly on behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas. 21 plus age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Fees may apply in Illinois, void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 7 days after issuance. See sportsbook.draftkings.com/promos. NFL Sunday Ticket offer for new subscribers only and auto renews until canceled. Digital games and commercial use excluded. Restrictions apply. Additional NFL Sunday Ticket terms at youtube.com/go/NFL Sunday Ticket/terms. This is a limited time offer. Jags Texans. Fierce AFC South matchup here. Both these teams reeling off losses. What do we think about this one, Dalton? What do you want to talk about here?
I'll tell you, this was fun because watching the Jaguars' offensive tape, and there's been so much attention paid to Trevor Lawrence and Brian Thomas Jr. and the way he played last week, and Travis Hunter and his usage and how that's going, and he was a true two-way player last week. And the more I watch this team, the most impressive part to me has been their offensive line and the way they're working in the run game. Obviously, Travis Etienne's put up big numbers so far, but if you look at this Jaguars run blocking, second in the league in run blocking grade, fifth in impact run block percentage. You've talked about that's the percentage of plays where you're getting a positive grade. Any of your run blockers, first in yards per carry. They're leading the league in yards per carry, 5.8 yards per attempt, and second in the league in yards before contact per attempt. So it's not really as much, of Etienne shaking guys at the second level and doing all that. Their offensive line is absolutely moving people, Trevor. And the Texans, they've got, I believe, the fifth worst run defense grade in the league. Their defensive tackles have generally gotten exposed in the last couple of years in run defense. You look at what the Jags are bringing on their offensive line right now, and it's funny because you've got Liam Cohen, who wants a balanced offense. You got some new names you're dealing with on the offensive line. Patrick McCarry's in from Baltimore playing right guard. He's been nasty so far. Robert Hainsey at center has been really impressive. He's actually their highest graded offensive lineman. He only started one game for Tampa Bay last year, but when you're talking about putting in a new system, if you're Liam Cohen, it's really good to have a center that knows your system and has been in it for at least a year, right? And just comes over and makes that transition a lot more seamless. And then you look at the way even they can put multiple tight ends on the field. Brenton Strange, Johnny Munt, they can block. It was a lot of fun, a lot more fun than I thought it would be to watch this Jaguars offensive line just absolutely mow people down through their first 2 weeks. I think that's going to be the goal again. For as much spotlight as on Trevor Lawrence, the Jags can win this game running the football first and then allowing Lawrence to work off of it. I think Liam Cohen's done a great job developing this run game so far.
Yeah, I think every time we talk about offensive coordinators getting head coaching gigs, of course, all anybody wants to talk about is how Liam Cohen's going to help Trevor Lawrence, all the passing game, all this kind of stuff. But Liam Cohen was one of the best run game offensive coordinators in the NFL last year. And I think that comes down to not just overall talent. Like Bucky Irving is fantastic. And so some people might be like, oh, okay, like how hard is it to give Bucky Irving the ball? You got to remember, when Canales was the offensive coordinator with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they didn't really know what their identity wanted to be. They ran a lot of outside zone stuff mixed with power scheme, run concepts between the tackles, and they were kind of just doing both to see, okay, am I more effective at one than the other? And as the season went on, they sort of leaned into more man and gap scheme, run blocking concepts at the end of the year with Canales, but then they you're changing offensive coordinators. Canales goes off to be the head coach with the Carolina Panthers. Liam Cohen comes in. So he's now got to figure this out for himself. For him, it was a lot quicker. I felt like week 6, 7, 8, right around the midway point of the season, maybe even a little bit earlier, he clearly just started to realize, okay, this team is a lot better when we are downhill run blocking, when we are running power concepts. And that is then what Tampa Bay leaned into towards the second half of the season. And they were a really good run blocking team, and they were a really good rushing team overall. That is, I think, what they have done, what he has done now with Jacksonville. He's able to identify it very quickly, which run scheme his offensive linemen and the running backs behind them operate better. And he's been able to do that very quickly. And so I'm so glad that you pointed that out, just because I feel as though every time an offensive coordinator is hired, we only talk about what he could be in the passing game. And Liam Cohen is a great offensive coordinator, first and foremost, because he knows how to get a successful run game going. Now, on the flip side of things, the Texans don't. Nick Caley is really struggling right now as the offensive coordinator to get the run game going. I thought it was a tough game for him against the Buccaneers. There were a handful of situations where, especially in that goal-to-go situation, I really did not like the play calls that they had there. Very clearly, it didn't work out for them because they went for it all the way up to fourth down and they weren't able to convert on any of them. It just looked like it was really difficult plays every step of the way. And I think that specifically starts with how they're running the football. Now, you got to have the offensive line needed in order to be a successful run blocking team. And who knows whether Houston actually has that, because like we've talked about a billion times here on the show, you trade Laramie Tunsil, you bring in a bunch of kind of makeshift offensive linemen, and they're still truly coming together. But 54.8 rushing grade with the Texans so far this year through 2 weeks with their running back specifically, not with CJ Stroud's rushing attempts involved. That's just 30th in rushing grade in the NFL. Their 3.7 yards per carry average, again, just from their running backs, is 21st in the NFL. They just don't have that explosive rushing attack, and they absolutely need it. And we're seeing right now, okay, well, they're trying to put a lot on CJ Stroud's plate, but it has to be much more balanced than it is right now. And the only way you can feel comfortable doing that is if you can can run block better, and if you get some more explosiveness out of the guys that you are handing the ball off to. So whether it's Woody Marks, whether it's Nick Chubb, I know Dameon Pierce was inactive this past week, but I think he'll be in the mix as the season goes on. They just have to have more production from their running back room. Ultimately, I think this is a better bounce back game for the Jags than it is for the Texans. I have the Jags winning this game 24-17.
I had a hard time with this one, if only because of we haven't really seen Trevor Lawrence play great football through the first 2 weeks, but I also have Jacksonville 24-20. I'm worried about this Texans offensive line against Josh Hines-Allen, against Trayvon Walker, against Eric Armstead, right? I think Anthony Campanile is throwing a lot of great looks at opposing offenses when it comes to zone coverage, especially. Obviously a tough week last week against the Bengals, but those Bengals receivers are obviously elite, so I think it's a little bit different here with Houston. And again, this comes down to who can find a run game here. And I trust Jacksonville's more. I trust their pass rush more. I trust their offensive line. I like them at home here, and the Texans always have a hard time winning at Jacksonville. As long as Trevor Lawrence doesn't turn the football over, he has to understand the assignment. We're going to manufacture offense. We're not going to force balls towards Derek Stingley and Kamari Lassiter. If he can do that and be accurate underneath, I do like Jacksonville in this game.
Colts, Titans, another AFC South. Colossal matchup here. Where are we starting with this conversation here? You want to start with the Titans or Indianapolis?
I'll go with Tennessee. And this appears to be after facing two opponents with really good pass rushes in Denver and the Rams. This appears to be the moment where we can go, okay, maybe Cam Ward will be protected enough to do something in the pocket this week, right? It's great for him to make the big flashy out-of-pocket throws, and the touchdown last week was fantastic. But at the end of the day, the Titans have spent a boatload of money and draft picks, for that matter, 2 first-rounders on this offensive line, and they have not lived up to it yet. The guards, Peter Skoronski and Kevin Zeitler, have been okay, but overall, as a unit, second-worst pass-blocking grade in the NFL, 5th-worst pressure rate, tied for the most sacks allowed. The Colts are 27th in pass rush grade. They have not really gotten it going yet. Leatu Latu was hurt last week. We'll see if he's back this week. You've got DeForest Buckner on the inside who's going to go against those 2 guards. But I think this is the moment now where you go, okay, it's a little easier opponent. The Colts aren't, they're going to show you different looks with Lou Anarumo, but they're manufacturing a pass rush right now more than just winning one-on-one battles. How many clean pockets can you give Cam Ward, right? He just has not had enough so far. I think a young quarterback especially who's trying to find chemistry with his receivers, Cam Ward is really good when he plays on time, and I know the highlight plays for him a lot of time are outside the pocket, but I think even last year at Miami, he was better when he was in rhythm and making those throws because he can see zone coverages and things of that nature so well. If he is clean, I think he has an opportunity to produce against a Lou Anarumo zone-heavy defense and a team that last week started 2 cornerbacks that have been on their team for less than a month. There is an opportunity, but the Titans, for the sake of A, the franchise and their quarterback, and B, for the sake of winning games, they need to pass protect better than they have the first 2 weeks. Considering the opponent, they have a slightly better opportunity to do that this week.
Yeah, I think that's where all the conversations start with the Tennessee Titans, is you have a guy that you have a lot of faith in at quarterback, and now it's your job to make sure the offensive line is as good as possible. And I don't know how much it's going to change from this current group this season, but it's hopefully a good measuring stick of where you are with these guys and who you want to build this offensive line around moving forward. And I think this is a big game, obviously, to be able to prove that for some of these guys. The Colts, as you know, Dalton, are having a pretty good season. They're calling it the perfect season.
They are calling it the perfect season, Trev.
They're calling it the perfect season.
Don't forget that. It's the perfect season.
You won't let me forget it, and I won't let you forget it just because I crack up every time we say the phrase, have yet to punt. I don't know if they're going to punt in this game. I say that, watch them go 3-and-out to start this game. But honestly, a reason why they have had one of the highest EPA per plays in the NFL, which in fact they are trailing only the Buffalo Bills, and they're trailing the Buffalo Bills by 0.001 for number 1 when it comes to EPA per play in the NFL. So they are right there at the very top with the Buffalo Bills at the best is moving the ball and scoring points. Of course you are when you never punt the football. But a big reason why, running the ball, man. I mean, Jonathan Taylor looks like he is the Jonathan Taylor of old, and they're playing extremely well on the ground. Second best EPA per play, I mentioned that, but second most rushing yards in the NFL, second most missed tackles forced from their running backs when they are running the football. It is such an impactful run game, an efficient run game, a difference-making run game. They've got those explosive plays, whether it's the rushes or what Jonathan Taylor's been able to do as a receiver. I think that's huge for this team. And as long as they can continue to run the ball efficiently, doesn't have to be number one in the NFL, but hey, if they're top 10 at rushing efficiency, this offense is going to run very smoothly, especially with Daniel Jones playing as confidently as he is. Now, if he's got to drop back and throw the ball 45 times, like, yeah, okay, we might get in a little bit of trouble there, but there has not been a team that's really put that pressure on him, which is surprising to say that given the fact that they played the Denver Broncos last week. They were still able to run the ball the way that they wanted to, and Jonathan Taylor was still able to be a really good offensive weapon out of the backfield. Now, on the flip side of things for this matchup specifically, the Tennessee Titans, they have 8 missed tackles so far this year, which is, I believe, bottom 12 in the NFL. It's like 12th most in the NFL, which is not the situation that you want to be in. And they're 26th in total run defense grade at a 57.1. And so I just don't see the Titans doing what they need to do in the offensive trenches and also stopping the run to win this game. I have the Colts winning, and I have the Colts winning with a decently high score. 30-21 is what I have this game at, and unless Cam Ward is just unbelievable, and unless this is just his first Wizard game, which, hey, maybe it is. Wasn't it Jaden Daniels week 3 last year? Isn't that the week that he played the Bengals and he just went absolutely nuclear? So maybe there's something about week 3 with rookie quarterbacks if Cam Ward's able to do it here, but outside of that, it's hard for me to see the Indianapolis Colts lose this one, so I got them winning 30-21.
I had to look it up for the fun of it just because you mentioned it, Trev. So right now you can get the Colts to punt on their first drive on DraftKings at plus 122. If you were feeling like taking that, if you were feeling like breaking the curse on their first drive, you could get that right now. You get plus 122 on a punt.
Good call out.
I think Tennessee, I think their D-line, I think Sweat and Simmons and Joseph Day on the inside can give the Colts offensive line a pretty good battle here. It's the second-level defenders I worry about more so with Tennessee. I actually think this game is going to be a bit closer than you have it in Tennessee. I think their offensive line is going to play at least a little bit better this week, but I still have the Colts winning 23-19. I think we get a hard-fought physical game, and eventually the Colts passing game and what Daniel Jones is doing through the air is going to make the difference in a closer game than you have it.
We've got an NFC South showdown in Carolina this week as the Falcons are traveling to Carolina to take on the Panthers. You want to start this by talking about the Panthers? You want to talk about the Falcons?
I'm going to go with the Falcons defense here. And much in the same way that I mentioned New England's pass protection earlier, coming kind of up from the bottom of the league, Atlanta's pass rush so far has done that as well. Last year, they were bottom 3 in basically every pass rush category. Right now, through 2 weeks, 14th in pass rush grade, 3rd in pressure rate, 8th in pass rush win rate, 5th in sacks. You look at this crew that they're putting together, and it's a deep rotation of guys, right? Arnold Ebiketie, Jalen Walker, James Pierce Jr. On the inside, guys like Ruka Rororo, Brandon Dorless. They got a bunch of guys that they're rotating. You have Leonard Floyd, the veteran, also. So many guys that they're rotating in and out on this defensive line. They got 6 sacks last week against Minnesota, and I know their offensive line's a bit compromised, but Atlanta never rushed a passer like this last year, and that was the idea behind bringing in these new faces, drafting 2 first-round draft picks in James Pierce Jr. and Jalen Walker. You still have Caden Ellis, who sometimes can blitz as well. I think you're talking about a Falcons pass rush that so far looks improved, and they have a very good matchup in this game against a Carolina team that's not pass protecting well and just had 2 of their offensive line starters, Austin Corbett and Robert Hunt, both go on IR. You're going to get Cade Mays and Chandler Zavala at center and right guard, along with the rest of that group that's kind of struggling right now. So I think if the Falcons pass rush plays the way it's played the first 2 weeks, which may be something closer to above average than elite even, it's way better than they had last year. And you can see the athleticism, you can see the speed, especially of Walker and Pierce being a problem, especially if a quarterback holds the ball too long. I think if I'm Bryce Young and I have these 2 backup offensive linemen in front of me, he's got to get rid of the ball very, very quickly.
Yeah, from my talking point here, it's 2 different ways to talk about how much I think that Carolina is struggling right now at the linebacker level. overall, when it comes to their linebackers just covering running backs, which is often a coverage assignment of linebackers out of the backfield, they have a 41.2 coverage grade. That's not ideal, and obviously you're going up against an Atlanta Falcons team that has Bijan Robinson. 12 targets, 9 receptions, 125 receiving yards. That 125 receiving yards actually leads the Falcons so far through 2 weeks. And so you know that they're not afraid to get him the football, whether it's through targets, volume, or just overall yards after catch opportunities. So I think the Panthers have struggled there. But there's another area where I feel like the Panthers linebackers have really struggled as well, and that's just overall, specifically middle of the field, intermediate and deep middle of the field. So safeties kind of go into this a little bit, but specifically the linebackers, just a 29.8 coverage grade so far this season. That's of course, like, halfbacks go into that a little bit, but it's more of just over the middle of the field. So over the intermediate middle of the field, they have really struggled to cover. And I kind of highlighted that when we went over the grades release show this past Monday. But again, this is an interesting game for that, because Dalton, Michael Penix has not really thrown over the intermediate and deep parts of the field very much this season. He only has 3 attempts that are between the hash marks and over the intermediate middle of the field so far this year. That's 29th out of 32 quarterbacks in the NFL, taking the guys who were regular starters. So he just does not do it very often, or at least he has not done it very much so far this season. That's an area where Carolina is weak. Their safeties, their linebackers in coverage. Do the Falcons switch it up a little bit and actually attack that weak point in Carolina's defense? Or do they just continue to say, no, we're still going to, at the numbers or outside the numbers, that's where we really want to live, and obviously swing passes, things like that out of the backfield to Robinson. It's just it's a little adjustment game that I'm excited to see, because if the Falcons notice that that's an area where Carolina has really struggled, and they do something very different from what they've done in the first couple of weeks, well, then that tells me that the Falcons are going to be very willing to allow Michael Penix to attack defenses wherever they are weakest as we move forward from this point on in the season. But if they don't attack the middle of the field, then maybe we have to think to ourselves, does Penix just not like doing this? Did they run this in training camp in the preseason or whatever, and they just didn't like how their offense was operating when they were trying to attack over the middle of the field? Because then all of a sudden, that becomes maybe a Falcons issue, something that might hold them back. So it's a little bit of a barometer game in that regard, and we're going to learn something about the Falcons either way, depending on how they attack the Panthers. I do think this game is going to be close because it's in Carolina, but I do have the Falcons winning this one 28-24. What do you got?
I like Atlanta too. I think the offensive line concerns for me with Carolina are big, and the Falcons, I really like that they got back again to the bread and butter with Bijan Robinson and Tyler Algier in the run game. I think it starts there with the way that they're going to attack, and then if they're going to attack that middle of the field, it's going to be with their play action concepts, especially out of the pistol when they're getting out of those outside zone looks. And then I think too, if we've seen in that first game against the Buccaneers, where if you get Bijan Robinson in man-to-man situations on these linebackers, he can be a serious problem in the open field. I've got the Falcons 27-17. I think they're pretty handily the better team here.
Yeah, we're agreeing on a lot of these games, but I kind of felt like we would have when I looked at the schedule, so I guess it is what it is. The Green Bay Packers feels like the hottest team in the NFL. A lot of early Super Bowl votes are going to the Green Bay Packers, and with great reason. They're traveling to the Cleveland Browns, who have put up some nice defensive performances through the first 2 weeks of the season, even though they're sitting here at 0-2. Dalton, what do you think about the Browns and their chances against the red-hot Green Bay Packers?
Well, as far as when the Browns are on offense, I'm going to sit here and state the obvious. The Packers lead the league in pressures, and they have Micah Parsons and Rashawn Gary and all those freaks up front. And the Browns have Joe Flacco. And Joe Flacco at 40 years old, who is not going to move very much and currently has a 29.7 passing grade under pressure. Last year, he was one of the worst quarterbacks in football under pressure. He just has to be able to set his feet and throw the football. He can still make throws, but not if the pocket is muddy, and he's not going to improvise in any way whatsoever at this point. So if the Browns if they're going to have a decided disadvantage again this week, especially at offensive tackle, Jack Conklin should be back in, but he's battling through injuries. DeJuan Jones Jones on the left side, we've mentioned before, has really struggled. I think it's a real problem. Flacco's going to have to get rid of the ball quickly because you're talking about he's already got 3 turnover-worthy plays under pressure. It's not the ideal situation. The Browns' interior unit has played okay, although Parsons might get in on them and mess that up a little bit too. But I think that's going to be the problem is Joe Flacco under pressure in this game against a team that has become immediately with Parsons in the lineup one of the best pass rush teams in the NFL.
And they have to run the ball, right? I mean, we talked about this in the review grade release episode on Monday, that the Browns just have not been able to run the ball. And my big takeaway when the Browns played this past weekend is Joe Flacco can't be passing the ball 45 times. But if you can't run the football, guess what? He's going to pass the ball 40 to 45 times. And that's exactly what you don't want against this Packers team because you're giving them the ability to tee off on you and get into the backfield against, say, 40-year-old Joe Flacco, which is not what you want. Tough to see that going the Cleveland Browns way unless Quinshon Judkins just has an unbelievable – him and Dylan Sampson have to have a really good game as a duo for the Browns to keep this one close, I think, at the offensive side of things. On the Packers' offensive side of things, Jordan Love, he's top 5 in PFF passing grade, 84.9. He's top 5 in big-time throws, 6 already through 2 games. He's top 5 in quarterback rating at a 108.7. I mean, he's just on fire. I mean, he is playing fully confidently, and it just feels like the Packers have so much confidence as a team since trading for Micah Parsons. Like, they genuinely believe that they are the best team in the NFL now that Micah is on their roster. And I think that's not only showing up on the defensive side of the football, that's also showing up on the offensive side of the football. And Jordan Love is playing very, very confidently. The X factor here, Dalton, that I think makes this game particularly interesting is the Browns, we mentioned, have been pretty good on the defensive side of the ball to start the season, which has been good to see for them. The Browns have a 90.9 coverage grade versus tight ends through 2 weeks. That's the best coverage grade against tight ends in the NFL so far this season. The Packers, with Tucker Kraft and Luke Musgrave, have the highest receiving grade when targeting tight ends in the NFL. So you have one team that very much wants to get their tight ends, multiple tight ends, involved in their offensive passing game plan. And you have another team that has been excellent at taking that away from teams so far this year. So that is very much a unstoppable force meeting an immovable object type of matchup in this game that I am very much looking forward to see which part of that comes out on top.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And Tucker Kraft especially has been so good for the Packers. We'll see if that continues. But this linebacker pair for the Browns, Carson Schlesinger and Devin Bush, they've been fantastic as well. For me, I think this is the week with Jaden Reed out, and as much as the Browns play man-to-man coverage, I think this is the week you could try to get Matthew Golden going. Now, he could have easily had 2 touchdowns last week if Jordan Love had made the throws. Jaden Reed is out. Golden is the speed guy. And obviously, when you talk about how defenses have to respond to Golden in that 4-2 speed, you're getting those 2 high looks. You're getting, you're getting it where those intermediate throws are available for Jordan Love. As long as he has enough time, if Matthew Golden's getting those one-on-one single high situations on the outside, I think he's got a chance to maybe finally have his first big day in Green Bay. I think Jordan Love is going to respond by getting out there to the outside.
This might be a little bit disrespectful to how the Browns have played defense so far this season, but I have the Packers winning big. I got them winning 31-13 in a statement game here. Who do you have winning this?
I've got the Packers 24-10. I do think the Browns defense obviously is a very good unit. You have to work around Myles Garrett and that defensive line. Like I mentioned, the 2 linebackers are playing great, but at the end of the day, I don't know how the Browns are going to score a whole lot of points in this game. And this Packers defense is absolutely. I think the Packers defense last week was a bigger story than their offense. I really do. They're just at all 3 levels. They're playing fantastic football, 24-10.
The reason why I have the score as lopsided as I do, which again feels disrespectful to how Cleveland's played defense, is I don't know how much they're going to be able to control the ball. Right? I mean, like if this Packers defensive line is eating them alive, unless the Cleveland Browns run the ball much better than they have through the first 2 weeks, I mean, the time of possession could be totally swayed towards the Packers side of things. So, yeah, I just think that this has the opportunity for the Packers to make a big statement game against a good defense, even though the Browns have been good on defense through the first couple of weeks. Chargers and the Broncos, divisional matchup here, and a big one, a really big one. These are 2 teams that are absolutely fighting for the top of this division, for this division title this year, especially with the Kansas City Chiefs starting this year off 0-2. So Chargers, Broncos, which side of the ball you want to start with?
Trev, Broncos fans are kind of mad at me this week, man.
Why? What'd you do?
They're kind of mad, man. They don't like the way I've been talking about Bo Nix and how he's played through 2 weeks. They really don't. I know we were having this debate the other day, and we've been having this debate all week, but they're not big fans, you know. And look, all I've said is I don't like this new high variance gunslinging Bo Nix because I don't think it's been great. And right now, through 2 weeks, he's got the lowest passing grade in the NFL on 10+ yard throws. Here's what I'll say. If you want to prove you can be that gunslinger and throw the ball downfield all the time, and that's what we're going to be is home run hitting in Denver, well, this is the secondary you're trying to prove it against. They are really good at preventing explosive plays. Geno Smith against the Chargers on Monday was 0 for 12 on 10+ yard throws, and the Chargers right now have by almost 20 points, Trevor, the highest coverage grade in the league against these throws. 4 for 20 they're holding opponents to. 3 interceptions, 32.5 passer rating allowed. Remember, 39.6 is what you get if you just spike the ball into the ground every play. Derwin James, Alohi Gilman, Tariq Still, Cam Hart, all these guys that are playing such great football in this Chargers secondary, and the way that Jesse Minter and all of his zone coverage just puts an absolute lid on opposing passing games. They make you win underneath. They make you win running the football. They make you win the way that the Denver Broncos won games last season in a more conservative nature because they just don't give up home runs, especially with those two safeties and the way that Derwin James just flies all over the field from different alignments. You're playing with fire here if you're doing this and you're trying to chuck deep balls against this Chargers defense. Geno Smith couldn't make it happen, and he's one of the best vertical passers in the league. He was absolutely shut down from those big throws. Bo Nix, you can try it, but if I was making a suggestion, you should probably go back to being a little more conservative and accurate underneath and taking a more workmanlike approach because this is not the secondary to mess around and try to take shots with constantly.
I think this is going to be a really close game because I do still think that you're going to see Bo Nix push it a little bit, but I don't think you're going to see him push it as much as he has over the last 2 weeks because of what you mentioned. If he does, I think there's a chance that he could really get in trouble and the Broncos could be in a little bit of trouble here. On the other side of things for the Chargers, Justin Herbert's playing really, really well. He's playing very controlled. He's not lighting the world on fire with a million big-time throws or anything, but man, the passer rating is so high, the PFF passing grade is so high, and he's just playing a very clean brand of football, and he's getting this team wins in each of the last 2 weeks, especially against the Chiefs team to start the season, which I know was really big for them. The run game, though, not great for this Chargers team. 31st in the NFL in EPA per rush, 28th in yards per carry average. I mean, Amari and Hampton and Najee Harris just have not been explosive backs for them. They're willing to give them the ball. They have a decent amount of carries so far this season, but every time they do, it's basically just to try to stay balanced. They haven't been really giving any of these guys the ball because they're feeding the hot hand. They're trying to do what is working on offense. They're really just trying to get them going still at this point. And the Broncos struggled with Jonathan Taylor last week, through the air, on the ground. They're looking for a bounce back performance here. And so I think that they're going to be trying to play up to their highest potential, especially when it comes to stopping the run. And this is an opponent that has not been able to run the football much so far this season. So if that goes well for the Broncos, if they are able to continue to make the Chargers offense one-dimensional like it has been for the first 2 weeks, I think this is a very close game. I do have the Chargers winning this one at home, 23-21, which the line is the Chargers are favored by 2.5. So that's right there with what DraftKings sees as the line for this game. So I think it's going to be a close one. I really don't know which version of Bo Nix that we're going to get, even though I'm not really as worried about it overall as you are. I don't know which version we're going to get for this game specifically, and if he's going to continue to be aggressive, this is a tough opponent to be aggressive with, and you could see a couple of turnover-worthy plays really bite them. But that's how I see this game going. Who do you think wins this game with the score?
To your point about the Chargers' offensive line, I think the run blocking was an even bigger concern when Rashawn Slater got hurt than the pass blocking was. Right now, the only two teams with fewer rushing yards before contact are Cincinnati and Las Vegas, who you've already talked about twice, highlighting how bad their run blocking has been. The Chargers are right down there with them, so it is tough. Look, Hampton and Harris are obviously two talented backs, but it's tough when your line's not blocking anyone, and the injuries and the adjustments the Chargers have had to deal with since the preseason. that's big. But I still like the Chargers. I think Justin Herbert's playing fantastic football right now. Bo Nix against this secondary, I'm not trusting it this week. I think I need to see some adjustments from this offense to be just dial it back just a little bit, be a little more conservative, and work to the chains and get first downs and manufacture offense. I like the Chargers 27-20.
Got about 5 more games left that we're previewing here for this week, and some updated injury news on some of those games. Before we get to that, parenting. It's filled with all sorts of high-pressure decisions. It can always be difficult to see, whether you're making the right decision for your kids. Here is a simple decision that you can make to have a meaningful impact on your kids' future. Opening up a UGMA kids investment account with Fabric. Fabric by Gerber Life was designed by parents for parents to make it easy to plan for and manage your family's financial path. With a kids investment account from Fabric, you guys can start investing in your child's future today. While your kids can't invest while they are minors, Kids Investment Account, this UGMA Kids Investment Account, allows you to invest on their behalf. It gives their investments so much more time to grow. It starts with just $1 a day. You manage your child's account right from your phone. There's no contribution limits to it. It's got multiple tax advantages. They're SIPC insured up to $500,000. There's no commission fees to it. Low flat monthly maintenance fee. That's it. Funds can be used for anything. When they're kids, maybe it's tuition, it's books, it's summer camp, it's after school activities, whatever that is. And then when they're adults, maybe you're dipping into it to help them buy their first car, their first house, start a business, whatever that looks like. All online. Setting up an account could take you as little as just 5 minutes. Get started today. Join the thousands of parents who trust Fabric to help protect their family. Start investing in your child's future today at meetfabric.com/PFFNFL. That's meetfabric.com/PFFNFL. MEET fabric.com/PFFNFL. The portfolios are managed by Fort Washington Investment Advisors Incorporated. Additional services provided by Apex Clearing Corporation. All investing is subject to risk. You can learn more at meetfabric.com. All right, Saints and the Seahawks. Little Clint Kubiak revenge game. I'll talk about that in a second. Where do you want to start with this game?
Interesting matchup because I think the Saints offensively, they haven't played that bad in the first 2 weeks. I just think they've gotten off to slow starts. First quarter, fourth quarter, kind of those big moments in games for you to put up points. They haven't done it, but they've been up and down. I think a big matchup individually I'm looking at is the Saints and this offensive line. It's still not great, and the two guard spots to me have been a concern. Trevor Penning's been out, so it's been Dylan Radins at left guard. He's got a 56.9 PFF grade, and Cesar Ruiz has really struggled on the right side, a 35.8 PFF grade. And then you look at these two big defensive tackles that Seattle's got in the middle of it. I thought these two guys really controlled the game against Pittsburgh so well last week. Leonard Williams, obviously Seattle's best defensive player last year, and I think once again this year at a 79 PFF grade. And Byron Murphy's given him some real juice right now as a pass rusher. 7 pressures and 2 sacks through 2 games. I think these two guys are a big key. If the Saints want to run between the tackles, if they want to get in those inside zone runs that Kellen Moore loves so much, they got to go right through what's really going to, I think, very soon going to become a brick wall with the veteran in Leonard Williams and the young gun in Byron Murphy. I think this is a big matchup I'm looking for on the inside, and even the way that these two align against Talisa Fuaga and against Kelvin Banks, who have been kind of up and down lately. So I think the Saints offensive line has a tall task blocking these two guys on the inside for Seattle.
Yeah, that was the matchup that I would have highlighted, like in this game. I think that's the biggest matchup right now is just how poor the Saints' interior offensive line is and how on fire it feels like the Saints' defensive line is. That could be just a game wrecker in and of itself. I think that Clint Kubiak, the offensive coordinator for the Seattle Seahawks, who was the offensive coordinator of the New Orleans Saints last year, him versus his old team. And, it's kind of funny because the Saints, just a 51.8 run defense grade against outside zone so far this season. That's something that Clint Kubiak likes to often go to, is that outside zone run game. And so I think that he'll do that plenty. And he knows this defense very, very well. A lot of the players that are starting this year for the New Orleans Saints were there last year. So seeing these guys in practice, he knows what they're capable of. He kind of knows what the DNA of this defense is going to be. So I think the advantage is there with Kubiak. And I think specifically with Kenneth Walker coming off of a really good game last week, a good score when running behind outside zone. But I think an even better score really just running between the tackles or running north to south. They're just really getting in their groove there. And if they continue that, I think this game will be decently close. I mean, I have it 24-14. I have Seattle winning just because I think they're the more talented team. But yeah, I could see this being a one-score game. I really can, because it feels like You're right. I think you got to give Spencer Rattler some credit. I think Rattler has been fine. I don't think Rattler has been terrible. I don't think it's like, oh, they have no chance with this guy. I think they've been a lot more competitive through 2 games than certainly I thought, and a lot of people out there thought they would be. I just don't think they have the overall talent right now to beat a team that I think has playoff caliber talent in the Seattle Seahawks. So this one's in Seattle. Obviously, it's a long way to travel for the Saints as well. So I'll have the Seahawks winning this one by 10, 24-14.
I also have them by 10. I felt like mixing in a weird score in one of these games. So 26 to 16, just to get a weird score in, because I feel like I'm always picking the same scores in all of these games. We'll try to get maybe a scoregami out of it. I don't know. But no, I'm with you. I think Seattle is the better team. Rattler hasn't been playing horrible football. I don't think he's been playing great football either. And I think the Saints team, they've done a nice job. Brandon Staley, with all the zone defenses he runs, has been keeping things within the box and really not giving up too many explosive plays to take themselves out of it. That's a big contrast from what Dennis Allen used to do with all the man coverage he used to run. But I think Seattle at home has the better football team. I'm with you. I think they get that run game going again.
The Dallas Cowboys are traveling to Chicago to take on the Bears. Bears 0-2. They desperately need a win at this point, especially coming off of an absolute beatdown that they took for their divisional foe in the Detroit Lions last week. The Cowboys have looked good. They have certainly looked better. Thrilling win last week against the New York Giants in overtime, and we're a lot closer to taking down the Philadelphia Eagles than I think a lot of people were giving them credit for, again, myself included, to start the season. So what's the matchup that you're really looking forward to in this one?
Look, Dak Prescott is raging hot. He's got the second best passing grade in the league. He's got the most big-time throws in the league. He's played 2 fantastic football games, and really the first loss to the Eagles was just killed by drops, and he was throwing the football great. And the Bears' secondary is ice cold, and I don't know if it's going to get any better with Jalen Johnson possibly done for the rest of the regular season. Kyler Gordon in the slot has not played a snap yet, and the rest of the guys are struggling. You look at this Bears secondary right now and where it stands. Last in the league in coverage grade. Really the only big play they've made was the Nashawn Wright pick 6 on J.J. McCarthy, and then they found a way to blow the game in the fourth quarter anyway. Second worst in yards per attempt allowed, worst passer rating allowed, most touchdowns allowed. Everything about this just says Dak Prescott's going to go to Chicago and have another big day. And if I took the over in this game earlier, Trev, as a DraftKings bet. If I had another one and the odds aren't up for you, I think CeeDee Lamb's going for 100 because the Bears, and I just mentioned Dennis Allen with the Saints and how much man coverage he runs. He's got this team that's short Jalen Johnson, their best player, and short Kyler Gordon, and Tyreek Stevenson's struggling, and they're rotating other guys at corner, and even Kevin Byard's struggling, and they run the 4th highest rate of man coverage in the NFL. So you're going to one-on-one with CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens. You got Dak Prescott seeing the field the way he's seeing it right now. I mean, again, you look at these numbers, and you just go, there isn't really a reason for Dak Prescott not to have a big day in this game. If the Bears are going to win it, they're going to have to score a lot of points because the way Dak's throwing the ball right now and the way he's seeing the field is just fantastic.
Yeah, number 1 quarterback in terms of PFF passing grade under pressure as well. So, whether it's what they're planning to do, whether it's he is under pressure. I mean, Dak has been one of the best quarterbacks in the league through 2 weeks. The Bears, I went back and I watched I watched the All-22 of Caleb because I just wondered if it was just going to be terrible from him. And, there were certainly throws that were questionable that he would want to have back. But Caleb made a lot of big plays in this game. I don't think Caleb is the reason why they lost. Their secondary is absolutely the reason why they lost, especially the amount in which they lost against the Detroit Lions. I also think that they have to run the ball better. And you got a good offensive line, yes, to protect Caleb, but also to run the football better. And they just have not been able to run the ball really well through 2 weeks. They're 19th in the NFL in EPA per rush. They're 28th in PFF rushing grade overall. Now, how do you quell a red-hot quarterback? You keep him off the field. And you've got to be able to run the football in order to do that. You've got to be able to control the clock. And the Cowboys are still the worst run defense team in the NFL through 2 weeks. They're 32nd in overall PFF grade in run defense. So this is the opportunity to get right. This is the opportunity to control the clock, to control that time of possession, keep Dak Prescott off the field, and have a much more methodical game. And I feel like Caleb has been decently well when he's been given the opportunity to be that. It's when he gets pressured and when the situation then calls for him to be something a little bit different, that he's held on to the ball a little bit longer. He's a little bit slower to see exactly which receiver he should go to. It's when the footwork starts to get messed up for him. This should be a game, especially with this one being in Chicago, that they should feel good about and that they should win. However, as much as I have harped on me believing in head coaches and me believing in the coaching staff that the Chicago Bears have, I'm not betting against a better quarterback in this one. I think the Cowboys win this game. I think they win it by a field goal, 27-24. I think this is a close game. I think this is an exciting game. But you're just not going to find me betting against Dak Prescott when he is playing like this. So I think the Cowboys win this one by 3.
Definitely shootout potential here, and I actually think there's a chance that both quarterbacks play well. Caleb Williams has the 9th best passing grade in the NFL in a clean pocket and the 4th worst under pressure. Luckily, like you mentioned, that Dallas defensive front is not great. They're not getting a ton of pressure, and if the Bears, you mentioned it, if the Bears can't run the ball this week, I don't know when they're going to, because the Cowboys still can't stop the run. They couldn't stop the Giants from running last week, especially late in the game. I've got Dallas, too, though, in a shootout, 31-27. I think you're getting points. That's certainly one thing you're getting in this game, and it could come down to, just like Dallas's last couple of games, who gets the ball on the last drive and if they can score with it. But I'll take the Cowboys. You mentioned it. Prescott right now is just raging hot.
The San Francisco 49ers hosting the Arizona Cardinals, and this is the one that I was referencing where we've got a little bit of injury news here. Garrett Williams, their cornerback in Arizona, he's going on IR, but Jonathan Gannon said there's potential for him to return, which is good. Max Melton is going to practice for them today. Will Johnson's not going to practice for them today. Once again, we're recording this on Wednesday, but he said that Will Johnson has an opportunity to practice, and he could very well practice and could go out there. So it's a questionable secondary with Garrett Williams, Max Melton, and Will Johnson sort of dealing with those injuries. Obviously, if all of those guys weren't out there, I think this would be not great for the Cardinals. But where do you want to start here? You want to talk about the Cardinals side of things or the Niners?
I'll go with Kyler Murray. And I think one thing that's a little bit different, at least through the first 2 games, and they haven't played 2 great teams in the first 2 weeks by any means, but it's really attacking the middle of the field. And I think that's an interesting matchup against this 49er team, especially when you talk about Fred Warner and D. Winters having 2 of the 3 best coverage grades in the league among linebackers, both of them above a 91. This is an area of the field I think is really interesting this week for Kyler Murray. So far, a 91.5 passing grade between the numbers over the middle of the field, 3rd best in the NFL, leading the NFL with an 89.3% completion rate, 3 touchdowns, 3 big-time throws. Kyler Murray, when he's gotten in big spots so far this year, has thrown the ball down the middle, down the seams of the defense, over the middle to Trey McBride. Drew Petzing mixes in some middle screens and things like that where the Cardinals can continue to get vertically down the field with their backs and things of that nature. I think this is an interesting moment for Murray if he's going to continue to attack this area of the field. We know how good Fred Warner is, and D. Winters looks like, especially in coverage, and he was really good in coverage last year, he's taken a step up as well. If he's kind of that new Dre Greenlaw type that runs around on the weak side and is covering everything to his side of the field, then I think it's going to be a little bit harder. I think they're going to force Kyler Murray to try to throw it to the outside more often, to Marvin Harrison, to Michael Wilson, to maybe the Cardinals are going to have to get in more condensed sets and run out-breaking routes and get out of there in that box. I want to see how much Kyler Murray is going to attack these 2 linebackers who are both playing at an elite level in coverage right now.
Yeah, that will be a fun chess match with some guys who are playing really, really well. Fred Warner, I believe, just won Defensive Player of the Week this past week as well. Just truly one of the best, not just linebackers. He's the best linebacker, just one of the best defensive players in the NFL. I'm going to have a little bit of a theme here, I guess, for these last couple of games. As I'm looking at my notes. Running the football. You've got to be able to run the football in this league, and the 49ers have not been able to run the football through 2 games. They are 30th in team rushing grade at a 61.0, and they are 24th in the NFL at EPA per rush. The Cardinals defense on the other side, they're 14th in run defense grade at a 67.1, and they're 7th best at EPA per rush allowed. So the Cardinals have done a really good job neutralizing what other teams want to do on the ground. And quite frankly, this Kyle Shanahan team has not been able to get it going despite Christian McCaffrey being out there. He's been much better as a receiver than he has been as a runner. And so if you can take that away once again, and you can make Mac Jones, who I remember Mac Jones is going to play this week, right? I mean, like, I thought the Brock Purdy injury, the window for it was pretty big. It was like, oh, he might miss 2 weeks or 6 weeks, if I'm remembering that correctly.
I think 2 to 4, they said. I'm 99% sure it'll be Mac Jones this week, yeah.
So I was going to say, I think that it will still be Mac Jones this week. And Mac Jones was good last week, but he wasn't asked to do a ton. If you get them behind on the scoreboard, if Murray can really continue to attack deep down the field the way that you have talked about him having the potential to be able to do, especially if he could have success over the middle of the field, which is tough to do against this Niners defense. If the Cardinals can really get the Niners behind the sticks, and depending on whether or not their corners are healthy, I guess that goes into it as well. All that to say, the Niners have not been able to run the football the way that they need to consistently win football games against the best opponents. And the Cardinals have been pretty good at stopping that so far through 2 weeks. So which one changes, if anything changes at all? Because if the Cardinals are still able to neutralize the Niners the way they've been neutralized over the last couple of weeks, I do like Arizona's chances. Now, for the sake of us disagreeing, because I feel like we've agreed too much here on this show, I have the exact same score as you. I just have it flipped. I have the 49ers winning this game 23-20, and I see that you have the Cardinals winning 23-20.
Yeah, I think this was one of the harder games to pick, and I don't. You're right. I don't like agreeing with you this much. Feels weird. Yeah, it benefited me more last week to disagree with you. That's how I ended up at 15-1, and you didn't. But either way, I mean, we're just
should have been 14-2. Should have been 14-2. Should have been 14-2.
Hey. 60 minutes in a football game, got to play all 60 of them, sometimes more.
I was going to say, apparently you got to play 60 minutes in 30 and actually 10 seconds, whatever it is that they have the untimed down. So,
well, yeah, exactly. You know what? Every play matters.
A 60-minute game, actually. Yeah, the Broncos won. The Broncos won the 60-minute game.
I mean, penalties matter too, though. You can't. I told you. Trevor, remember this: undisciplined habits bring undisciplined results. That's what they got from that game. It's
winnable games are only winnable if you win them.
It's that simple. Football's that simple. Cardinals 23-20, tough game to pick. I'm going to believe Kyler Murray pulls one out here. A big division game, and I think the Cardinals' secondary injuries are a big problem, right? And you're still talking about Juwan Jennings and Ricky Pearsall and Christian McCaffrey, good weapons for this Niner team to attack with. I just think the Cardinals, I want to see them run the football a little bit better in this game. If they can do that, I think they're at a pretty solid advantage here. Give me Arizona in a hard-fought game.
It would be a big win for Kyler Murray to get in the early parts of the season. So it would be cool to see that. But Donnie in the chat is saying this, and I agree with him. If Will and Max are out there, you feel pretty good about it. If either of those guys or both of those guys certainly aren't in the lineup at cornerback for the Cardinals, then you start to get worried about what Juwan Jennings and Ricky Pearsall and Christian McCaffrey as a receiver can do against this team. Sunday Night Football, the Kansas City Chiefs are traveling to New York to take on the red-hot Russell Wilson, coming off a 400-yard passing game, nearly a 500-yard passing game against the Dallas Cowboys. Dalton, where are we starting with this one?
We're going to start with Russell Wilson, and we're going to start with the fact that through 2 weeks, I've mentioned this before, the Chiefs are not rushing the passer at all. They have the third worst pass rush grade in the NFL, and Russell Wilson, even at his age, has proven if you give him enough space in the pocket and he can step into his throws, he can make those vertical throws. We saw it last week with 450 yards, right? We had the huge game against Dallas. They just didn't get any stops, and then the one interception at the end, it is what it is. That was his one mistake the entire game, but Russell Wilson in clean pockets right now, 82.8 passing grade, 8.9 yards per attempt, 6 big-time throws. This was the whole reason you signed him, right? As the bridge to Jackson Dart was Wilson's a vertical passer. It's the opposite of what they had last year with Daniel Jones and Tommy DeVito and all the other guys who were playing last year. They can get vertical. Malik Neighbors has speed. Wan'Dale Robinson has speed. If you put Jalen Hyatt out there, he's got vertical speed to work with. Russell Wilson, if he's clean, he's going to chuck it downfield on you. 10.5-yard average depth of target in a clean pocket, second highest in the NFL. We know what he's going to do. He just needs time to do it. So far through 2 weeks, the Chiefs have given opposing quarterbacks too much time to work with. Obviously, the Chargers and the Eagles' offensive lines are better in pass protection than the Giants. If the Chiefs can't rush the passer in this game, then I have major, major concerns about their defense, especially up front.
When we look at the Kansas City Chiefs, if we go back to last year, to 2024, Yes, they had a really good record. Yes, they made it to the Super Bowl. And I don't mean to say that as if it's a nothing accomplishment. It's a very impressive accomplishment, especially to get there 3 years in a row. But it just didn't feel like we had the confidence in the Chiefs' offense outside of just saying Mahomes and Andy Reid are just going to be unstoppable as a duo. And the reason why is because last year they couldn't run the football, and this year, Dalton, to start the year, they can't run the football. And this year they're 0-2 because of it. And we knew that they would regress to the mean, with winning all those one-score games last year. But this is something that has been a constant over the last 2 years. They're 27th in team rushing grade so far through 2 games at a 60.1. They're 27th in EPA per rush, and they are 31st in total rushing yards. Last year was the same. And then if you go back in time a little bit to when the Chiefs were really just this feared offense around the NFL in 2023, they were middle of the pack. They were right around 15th or 16th in basically all of those categories. Well, total rushing yards, they've always been a little bit lower, but efficiency marks. So PFF rushing grade, and especially EPA per rush, they were right around the middle of the pack. In 2022, they were top 10. In 2021, they were top 12. So when the Chiefs offense has been good, they're running the football. I know we want to sit here and we want to talk about, oh, they don't have Rashee Rice, oh, they don't have Xavier Worthy, like they got to get it going in the passing game, all this kind of stuff. They have to run the football. Last year, they were not as feared as they had been in the past because they could not run it. They were very one-dimensional. And Patrick Mahomes, he's been fantastic with his legs. He has really helped out the rushing attack, but specifically just from their halfbacks, from the guys that are out of the backfield. They have not been explosive. They have not been efficient. It's been a major reason why you feel like you have a chance against this team. And it's a major reason why the Kansas City Chiefs, which again was a team that made 3 Super Bowls in a row last year, was in 12 one-score games because they can't run the football. They have to be able to run the football in this game and just moving forward, regardless of Rashee Rice coming back, Xavier Worthy coming back, any of that. If they can't run the football, I don't think they make it back to the Super Bowl, and I don't think that they make it. I don't think they make it to the AFC Championship game if they can't if they run the football like they did last year, which looks exactly what they're doing this year. It's just no different for them. So I think that lack of run game for the Chiefs is really what we need to be talking about the most with Kansas City when it comes to a drawback from them getting back to the AFC Championship game, winning their division again, and getting back to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. The stat that continues to stick with me because they didn't get one this past week either. In their last 10 games, Chiefs running backs have one run of at least 15 yards. One. So, I mean, you mentioned it, the lack of explosiveness. Everyone talks about the receiver injuries and Rashee Rice's suspension and Travis Kelce slowing down, but they are also not explosive on the ground. The only guy who's getting anything done on the ground is Patrick Mahomes, and that's always in scramble situations where right now, Patrick Mahomes is trying to will this team to wins the way he normally has to in big games or in the playoffs or in a Super Bowl. That really, even as great as he is, it's hard to do that for 17 weeks and then get into the postseason and try to do it for another 4 or 5 weeks. So it's tough right now for this Chiefs team. And to me, obviously they have a lot to figure out, and he's just trying to will them through it.
Who do you have winning this game?
Despite all of that, it's just so hard to quit them, Trevor.
Yeah, I'm not gonna bet against Chiefs.
It's just so hard to quit them. I will say, to me, it's an extremely must-win game for the Chiefs. They just have to find a way to get out of this one with a win. Mm-hmm. And the Giants, yes, they're 0-2, but the place is going to be loud. They're going to be believing the Chiefs are vulnerable. That defensive line, Dexter Lawrence against Creed Humphrey, you can't get a better matchup than that. It's going to be ugly. It's going to be ugly. This is the week they need Chris Jones to be Chris Jones, and they need this defensive line to be better. If they can do that, I think they can win one of their usual ugly one-score games, 20-17.
I have it 23-17 as well, so pretty much that same one-score game. I just have it as a 6-point margin instead of a 3-point margin. The last game that we are talking about here is Monday Night Football. It's the Baltimore Ravens and the Detroit Lions. This one is in Baltimore. What do we think about this one, Dalton? Where are we starting?
So much talk about the Lions' offensive line, and especially the interior that's been reshuffled. You've got the 2 young kids, and you've got Glasgow playing center now. And look, they did run the ball better against Chicago last week than they did the previous week against Green Bay. One thing I'm looking for, though, is I think the Lions are much better because they have Penei Sewell and Taylor Decker at tackle. They're much better right now running off the edges than they are between the tackles. And I think between the tackles, especially when you got Roquan Smith sniffing around in there at linebacker, that's going to be a big story for the Lions. Can they run between the tackles? Outside of one long run from Jahmyr Gibbs against the Bears, there's really been not much to speak of. Between the tackles this year, 62.6 rushing grade, not great. 50.6 run blocking grade, only one explosive run. Trev, if they didn't have that one, I believe it's a 40 or 42-yard carry by Jahmyr Gibbs, they would be last in the NFL in yards per carry between the tackles. That's really the only play they've gotten out of this. So right now, when you look at this team, they can run to the edges because they have Sewell and Decker, but they're having difficulties, and it's expected with the reshuffling of this interior. They are having trouble running between the tackles, and with Frank Ragnow and Kevin Zeitler, right, obviously in there before last year, this used to be something they were really good at. They could run anywhere they wanted to. Right now they can hit the edges. It's not too bad out there, but running between the tackles is going to be at a premium for this team, especially against Roquan Smith, who's been so good in run defense the first couple weeks of the season.
On the Ravens side of things, I think that anybody who is a Derrick Henry fantasy owner knows what I'm about to say
Thank
here.
you, Trevor.
And
appreciate
probably
that.
What'd you say?
Appreciate that. I'm one of those. Yeah.
Look, I have him in 3 leagues. Okay, so it's not. I'm not saying anything to you that I haven't said to myself in the mirror this week about how this went. 2.1 yards per attempt average this past week. -1 yards before contact against Cleveland. 52.1 run blocking grade. That's just not the stuff that you see from the Baltimore Ravens. And kudos to the Cleveland Browns. They were fantastic at defending the run, whether it was their defensive line, their interior defensive linemen, the edge rushers, the linebackers, and even the secondary players that I was impressed with. They didn't have a single defensive player who had a run defense grade below 68, which is really impressive when the whole team is able to rally and defend the run like that. For the Ravens, though, I'm worried about Daniel Falele at the guard spot, about Andrew Voorhees at the guard spot, and even Tyler Linderbaum struggled last week, specifically against Malik Collins and what he was able to do against him. Now, the good news is, for all of us Derrick Henry fantasy owners, it should be a bounce-back week. When you look at just the interior defensive line for the Detroit Lions, just those defensive tackles, a 49.9 run defense grade so far this season from them. That's 26th in the NFL. And so it should be closer to business as usual for the Ravens, especially with this game being in Baltimore. And so I think that they're going to be able to control the ball much more closely to the way that they did so against the Buffalo Bills rather than what we saw last week versus the Cleveland Browns. I think the Ravens win this game, although I do think that it's close because I think that the Detroit Lions are getting back into their groove about how they run their passing attack. I'm going to say Ravens 30, Detroit Lions 28, so a very close one here. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, the Lions did well to attack the middle of the field against the Bears last week, but this is a whole different animal when you're talking about Roquan at linebacker, Kyle Hamilton and Malachi Starks back there at safety. I don't think it's going to be quite as easy. I have the Ravens 28-20. I do think they get the run game going again. You mentioned they've got DJ Reader, Tyleik Williams, Roy Lopez in there on the inside, kind of struggling through 2 weeks in run defense, and those are guys that you really expect to defend better than they have so far for you. All three of those guys under a 60 run defense grade. I like the Ravens at home. I think, last week they didn't play their best offensive game despite what the score was. I think they bounce back. I think Derrick Henry bounces back, and Lamar Jackson is Lamar Jackson as always in prime time.
If you guys want to take a look at all the stats that we talked about here on today's show, the best way to do that is by getting a PFF Plus subscription. PFF NFL Show 25. That's no spaces, just PFF NFL Show 25. That'll get you 25% off that PFF sub. So if you don't have one, now is a great time to get one. Think about it this way. Your next 3 months during the season, free. Boom. You're getting free stats, basically free data points, free grades, free everything there with that 25% off that you're getting using that promo code PFF NFL Show 25. If you were listening to this and you'd like to be involved sponsoring any sort of PFF content, sales@pff.com. That's the best way to get to in contact with us, and we would love to chat with you. Shout out to everybody else who is in the chat for today's show. Always fun getting to go back and forth with you guys who are previewing all these games. Dalton, have a safe flight later in the week. Don't pull your lower back as you're moving some of your furniture over to your new apartment, and hopefully I see you on Sunday.
I'll be alive. I don't know how alive, but I'll be alive. I'll see you on Sunday. We'll be all right.
You're gonna have the ice pack just wrapped around the lower back with how much stuff.
I'm in my 30s now, Trevor. It's getting harder. I'm in my 30s.
Let me tell you, from experience, it does indeed get harder. Shout out to everybody who watched the show. We love and appreciate you guys. Enjoy college football this weekend. Enjoy NFL this weekend. For Dalton Wasserman, I'm Trevor Sikkema saying thank you so much for watching once again. We will see you guys for the review show on Monday. See you then.